Michelle Prince, founder and CEO of Performance Publishing Group, making a difference one story at a time. We'll be shining the light on successful founders, entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders that are getting results and making a difference. We'll talk about how they built their businesses, are creating movements, and leveraging the power of authority in their own lives. Be sure to stick around to the end of the show, and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest. Let's get started. Hey, everybody, it's Michelle Prince, host of the Power of Authority Spotlight, where we shine the light on incredible business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, founders, people that are doing incredible things with their businesses, but they're creating movements. They're making a bigger impact. And so we're bringing on guests to talk about how they're leveraging their own authority to help others out there. So before we jump in, my guest today, you're gonna want to really grab a pen and paper and take some notes because he has some great information on how to help you really build your authority. But first, this episode is brought to you by Performance Publishing Group. Performance Publishing Group provides top quality, comprehensive book publishing services for soon-to-be authors. The Performance Publishing team has helped thousands of people realize their dream of becoming an author. And I know Tom, my guest here, knows firsthand the power of a book and why you want to have a book, as do I. So I do believe everybody should write their story and get it out there. But as a partner publisher, Performance Publishing Group can offer you more than just expert guidance. We want to make sure you get the book of your dreams and reap the rewards. To learn more, go to performancepublishinggroup.com. All right. Well, let me tell you about my friend and guest here, Tom Schwab. He's an entrepreneur, author, podcast interview marketing pioneer, and CEO, Chief Evangelist Officer of Interview Valet, the most trusted partner in the industry and leader in podcast interview marketing. He believes the best things in life come from conversations. It's these powerful, sometimes awkward conversations that propel us from where we are personally and professionally to where we dream of being. As an engineer, a Navy veteran, and nuclear propulsion. I don't know that I'm going to say that. Tom?
Propulsion.
Thank you. Plant operator. Easy for me to say. Tom thinks differently. Tough-minded, skeptical, sometimes even cantankerous, if I say that right.
Yep.
Okay, I love your bio. But always technically competent, always thinking, what if, is how the head of the nuclear Navy described it. Wow, so impressive. As a small business owner and entrepreneur, he understands the unique challenges of business owners. This led him to be an early pioneer of using inbound marketing for e-commerce and targeted podcast interviews for marketing that connects. Tom is the author of 2 books, Podcast Guest Profits, Grow Your Business with a Targeted Interview Strategy, called The Bible of Podcast Guesting, and One Conversation Away, a manifesto for a rich life and a profitable business. Tom, welcome to the show.
Michelle, I am thrilled to be here.
Well, I don't typically butcher the bio leading into it. But thank you for helping me with that word, because I don't know that I've ever come across it before. I
was going to say, you probably not run into a bunch of people whose first job out of college was a nuclear propulsion officer running nuclear power plants, but it gave me a foundation for business, how to systematize things. And, there's a reason I wasn't there for 20 years because I had that entrepreneurial spirit. So it's been a great journey. And
but what a great way to start. And, taking the foundation of being in the Navy and growing it from there. Walk us through, I love asking the backstory. So we're going to talk about your business. Interview Valet is very, very successful, and you can help so many people with your business. But what's the backstory, and how did you get from getting out of the Navy to where you are today with Interview Valet?
It's all about conversations and relationships, right? Relationships, to me, the ultimate currency. And some of the conversations I had early in life were wrong, right? So early on, I grew up in a middle-class family, and they told me, get a solid job, right? When I left the Navy, my dad told me I was a fool, right? Because I had done everything I wanted to, but my hat goes off to families, right? People would say, thank you for your service. No, it was harder on the families that I left behind. So I went from one steady job to another steady job in corporate America, working for a Fortune 500 company. And Michelle, it was killing me.
Mm.
I wanted to go out into sales, and I took a straight commission job. And I remember my dad telling me I was a dang fool or something like that, right? He's like, "You can't do this because you're married, you've got a family, you've got a mortgage, you've got kids." And it's like, I believed that I could do it and I had to do it. So there was that entrepreneurial spirit burning in me. And I've come to realize that true job security is not serving one employer,
Mm.
but it's serving, hundreds or thousands of different customers that can pay you. And, there's a
Ooh.
lot of problems in the world today, but there is no better time to be alive, right? With the
Mm.
free tools that we have here, you can connect with people around the world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's funny you say that about, taking a all 100% commission sales job. I did the exact same thing when I was 22 or 3 years old. That's actually when I was working for Zig Ziglar, and it was commission based. I was in sales for him. And yeah, I had a lot of people like, are you crazy? But you know what? You learn really quick what you're capable of. And when you have to make something happen, you will. I mean, that's kind of always been my motto, at least.
Crazy is fun.
It
Right?
is.
You
Yes.
you go out there, you test new things. I always like being at the front of the line, at the
Yeah.
front of what people are doing, not, the last person to do it.
Yeah.
That's not interesting to me.
So talk about being in front of the line. So when you started Interview Valet, and I know that you and I briefly met during that period, or at least over the phone, that podcasting had already begun, obviously, but it really hadn't exploded. I don't think at that point the way it has now. Now everybody's listening to podcasts, everybody's starting shows, guesting. How did you have that foresight to get into podcasting before it was as big as it is now?
Well, I would look at everything as an evolution, not a revolution. Right. So going
Mm.
back a little bit further than that, back in 2008, we had a sideline business that I was looking to take national. And I'd read a book by two smart guys out of MIT, Brian Halligan and Dharmesh Saw, went on to form HubSpot. And I can remember reading the book, calling into them and saying, "Hey, has anybody ever tried this for e-commerce?" And they said, "No, but it should work." And I thought, yeah, let's give it a try. And so we became HubSpot's first e-commerce case study, and
Wow.
really built that business up from a regional player to a national leader, sold that off in about 2014. And I started to think that we could use podcast interviews almost like we used to use guest blogs, right?
Mhm.
Just get that know, like, and trust. And for me, it was a whole lot easier because IR engineer, right? Writing a blog is a homework assignment for me, whereas talking
Yes.
is easy. So I started to test it about 2014.
Mhm.
It worked really well. And I thought, oh, maybe it's just a fluke. So I was in a mastermind group and a couple other people there. I said, why don't you give this a try? And it worked really well. And, I had already built up and sold a business. I didn't know if I wanted to start another one,
Mm.
but we beta tested it, and it worked very, very well. Actually, it was one of our clients that named it and bought the domain for Interview Valet and gifted it to us while we were in beta. And
No.
yeah, in 2016, it was officially launched. And for that first 3 years, Michelle, I thought we're too early, right? I'd do
Mm.
my elevator pitch, you
Mhm.
know, and people would
Mhm.
stop and go, "Oh, that's great. What's a podcast?"
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
about 2019, it really took off. And in hindsight, that gave us the time to build the team, to build the structure,
Yeah.
to build it all. And we started out as a remote company. So when COVID hit, that was really, we were set for that.
Yes. Don't you love that? I'm the same. I started my business in 2009, but the publishing company in 2010, and same, always has been remote. My team's actually all over the world. So when COVID hit, we didn't skip a beat, but so one of the perks of remote working, right?
Very much so. We get the best people wherever they are. About
Yeah.
half of our team is military spouses. So we've got about 32 people in Europe and North America.
So what exactly do you do for a client? I know you do lots of different things with Interview Valet, and I'm familiar with part of it, but explain those types of services and how someone can benefit.
So the biggest thing is, I believe everybody's biggest problem today is obscurity, right? If you're listening
Mm,
to this, there's hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of people you could help. The only problem is they don't know you exist,
right.
right? And this idea of breaking through the noise, I think, is laughable, right?
Mhm.
Facebook is selling us all bigger and bigger megaphones. Everybody's yelling, nobody's getting heard. So that idea of conversations driving results,
Mm,
and we do those conversations at scale. So people will come to us and say, can you get me on a podcast interview? And I'm like, well, that's not the goal. The goal is to launch a book. The goal is to get ideal coaching clients.
right.
The goal is to, build a consultancy. Maybe it's to launch your brand. And
Hmm.
we do that through targeted podcast interviews. So we are a people-driven company, but we make decisions on data. I are engineer, so it's very process-driven. When people come to us, we evaluate, what their goals are, what the target audiences are. We license lots of databases to find the right podcasts. And
Okay.
then going back to that inbound marketing perspective, we work with them on not just getting on the right podcasts, but
Hmm.
what do you do to move people from being a passive listener to an active visitor to an engaged
Mm.
lead? Yep.
Love that. Yeah. So podcasting, when we work with authors, we are not a marketing company nor a podcast company or anything, but of course we want to share with them, okay, here's some things that we believe are going to help you to really launch this and build your authority, right? And the whole point of even the show, my last book was called The Power of Authority, is to help people to see that when you have authority, people want to listen to what you have to say. And then that's when you make an impact in people's lives. So podcasting for me is one of those go to. I think it's one of the best ways to market not just a book, because it's never about a book, it's about your story and it's about the people that you're trying to help. So but when you have this conversation, it's no different. The way I look at it, Tom, and correct me if I'm wrong, so I've always been a big believer in speaking and getting out there so that people can experience you and people can figure out really quick if they like you or not. Well, with a podcast, the same thing is happening. It's just, audible, and it's remote, but I just think it's one of the best ways for people to decide pretty quickly if they know, like, and trust you. Because if they don't know, like, and trust you, then they're going to want to figure out, oh, you have a book, or oh, you have a course, oh, let me check out your website, or let me follow you on LinkedIn. So what are your thoughts around that?
I, I would agree with you. And I would add to that, that when you're on somebody else's podcast, there's a transfer of authority. So I could start my
Mm,
own podcast,
yeah.
and everybody that knows and loves Michelle Prince may see my podcast and have no idea who's Tom
Yeah.
Schwab, never heard of him before.
Mhm.
But if I'm on your podcast, if I'm on the Oprah show, it's if I'm, remember the days when as seen on TV,
Yeah.
that gave you the authority. So I don't think it's a either or podcast guest or podcast host. I think being a guest is a great way to get new leads, to get new exposure,
Mhm.
to get new backlinks.
Yes.
Really, it's to go out and get new business development, right?
Yes.
When you have your own podcast, that's a great way to nurture your current leads, to nurture your current customers. And, listen, everybody is different, right? Some people are natural writers. Some
Mhm.
people are natural speakers. Some people would love to be on a physical stage. Other ones would dread it.
Yeah.
But I think today that with technology, that you can create in the way that's easiest for you, and
Mm,
then repurpose the way that's easiest for your clients,
mm,
right? So somebody could be reading the transcript or a blog about this. They see a social media post.
yeah.
Some 70% of podcasts now have video with them also. So it's really an interesting medium. But I agree with you on today more than ever. We want to make it easy for people to either turn us up or
Uh-huh.
turn us off, right?
Yes.
When people come and say, "Do you want more leads?" No, I do not want more leads, right? Because I can't take leads to a bank, right? I
Mm,
can't help people that are leads. I
yeah.
want more ideal customers. So just to have a bunch of cold leads come in, it
Mm,
doesn't help. But if they've listened to me for 30 or 45 minutes, they've either turned me up or turned me off. They've
That's
self-selected. And so that's what the data shows, is that people, when they come from a podcast or a podcast interview, tend to close faster at a higher level and have less churn, really, because it's built on a relationship from the very beginning.
You are absolutely right. In fact, even myself personally, I've had some clients come to me, and of course, we always ask, "Well, how did you hear about us?" And many times, "Oh, I heard you on this particular podcast." And it is that borrowed authority, if you will. Like the bigger the show, the more potential authority. But one thing I think it's important to point out for those who want to be a guest, and I'm sure you help those that are just getting started in this. It's not about being on their show for the purpose of getting something back. It's about what can you provide to that audience of value. And it's kind of like Zig's famous quote: "You can have everything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want." So what does that host really want? What does that listener really want? And when you show up authentically sharing what you know, that's how I think it comes back to you more than it just being a mechanical thing.
Very much. And if you look at it as a transaction, it will not work.
It won't.
Podcast interviews are an awful place for an infomercial. But our mission at Interview Valet is to personally introduce inspiring thought leaders to millions of people they could serve for the betterment of all.
Love
Right.
it.
So if people come and say, I just want to do transactions, it won't work.
Mhm.
We teach our clients and, teach everyone through the book that your goal of being on a podcast interview is to make the host look like a genius for
Yes.
introducing you to their friends, right?
Yes.
Because if you do that, the host will promote you more than you ever could. Right.
Yes.
If you come there to use and abuse and make it a sales presentation, let me share a little secret. Those interviews get lost. The file gets corrupted and they never see the light of day.
Yeah. We don't know what happened to it, but
It was a technical glitch. So
Yeah.
sorry.
So sorry. Oh my goodness. Well, you've probably, I know you've been on countless shows, you've heard countless shows. Give me an example, or what's a great story of one of your customers that you brought on and you helped them become a guest, how that really helped to build their authority and build their business or their platform.
There's so many different stories, but there's one that I love because I think it shows the power of podcast guesting and podcast interview marketing. So Craig Cody is a CPA from Long Island. He's got more personality than any accountant you've ever met. He's a retired New York City detective. So he came to us after the last recession almost wiped him out, right?
Mm.
And he's like, I want a different client in every state, and I don't want two clients in the same industry. He wanted to totally diversify.
Mm.
Okay. So he gets out there and he starts talking. He mentions this book that he wrote that had never really done that well. But if you want a free copy of it, he'll give you a copy of it. Well, about 4 months goes on and we start looking at the data, and he's sending a whole lot of books to people that have DDS at the end of their name. He was on one dental podcast and it worked really, really well. And he's like, oh, I love dentists, right? They're professionals, they're recession proof, they got good cash flow. So it changed his entire business model. For the next 6 months, all he went on was dental podcasts. He's got his own dental podcasts now around the business side of it. And 80% of his clients are dentists. So he got invited to speak at different conferences. His book took off. He actually redid it a little bit so he could niche down on that market. But it just really shows you that conversation that he had with people, he got that feedback. And they told him what they loved and what they loathed. And he just had to keep doubling down on that. And it opens up so many doors from that. And I also like it because we've worked with some really big companies that will show us their cost of lead acquisition and cost of customer acquisition. But if I ever share that, they'll also show me their lawyers. Whereas Craig's an accountant, and he tracked everything to the penny. And at Podfest a couple of years ago, he said they delivered a 600% return on investment at 1 year, 1,200% at 2 years. And then he's like, well, and then he's got to do the accountant thing. This discounts, future value of the relationship, because those clients that he has, it's not a transaction. They're going to be with them for years and years.
Wow, that is an awesome story. I love it. So you were recently at what was the event that you were just at?
Podcast Movement was the last one.
The last one. And you made a big announcement. Do you want to talk about that, or what the company is doing?
I do. And we announced that we launched Interview Valet Espanol. And, for 8 years now, we've been doing Interview Valet and podcast interview marketing in English. But we've got team members from around the world, and about 4 of them at the time, and we've hired 3 more, are bilingual. And they're like, why can't we help the Spanish speaking market? Because more and more we were getting requests from that. And if you look at the numbers, it depends who you look at. Spanish speaking market's 3 to 5 years behind the English market in podcasting right now, but it's growing, and it's growing faster. And the truth is, there's more people speaking Spanish than there are English. So we're excited about that new division.
Yeah, I think that is fantastic. We've done a couple books in Spanish, and I always, there's such an opportunity there. They especially, they have, there's just such an opportunity there. So I love that you're doing that. And I think that's very unique and really, really cool.
I think it's something we all can look at, because I wrote my book and had somebody translate it into Spanish, right?
Yeah.
It works. It opens it up there. There's so many authors now that if you've done all the hard work to get your book out there, it doesn't take that much more to have somebody translate it, and you can help so many more people on that. And I struggled with it for a while and said, well, I don't know that we can do that because I don't speak Spanish fluently.
Right.
And somebody helped me with that. They said, well, how many languages do you think the CEO of McDonald's speaks? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2. Definitely not every country they're in.
That's such a great analogy. Great point. So we're running out of time, and I want to make sure. So what would you say? You have so much information and so much wisdom in this area, but what would your best advice be to somebody who recently, let's just use somebody who recently wrote a book. Their goal is to build a business or scale a business with this book. But they really have a passion. Like they have, they're on a mission to make an impact in a particular industry or person's life. And podcasting, they're like, well, maybe podcast. What would your advice be to that person?
First, I would say thank you for writing the book, right? A lot of people talk about it. Very few people do it.
Yes.
And then I would say, but you're not doing anybody any help by just writing the book. If you are the best kept secret and your book is the best kept secret, it might as well still be in your heart. Right?
Oh, yes.
You've got to go out there and promote it. And no publisher is going to promote your book for you or better than you do. You're the best spokesperson out there. So be a spokesperson. Get out there and get the exposure. And that used to be going around from Barnes and Noble to Barnes and Noble doing a book tour. Nobody goes there anymore. Right. So go where the people are. And today it's never been easier as, as a podcast guest. And, you can do it from your home. I think we're all comfortable with Zoom now after a couple of years. So it's just a conversation, and take the pressure off yourself too, that you're the expert in your book, in your opinions, and share that with people. And, they're either going to love you or not. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Put out to the world there what you know, because what's ordinary to you is amazing to others. And keep promoting that book, keep talking about that book. Just because you wrote it 6 months ago or 2 years ago, it still could help somebody and is new to them.
Awesome advice. And speaking of books, what is one of your most favorite books you've read in the last year or two?
It would have to be Play Bigger. By how pirates, dreamers, and innovators create and dominate markets. The host of it, or the author, has a podcast called Follow Your Different. And I think it's more fun to follow your different, to start your own category, be a category of one out there.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to check out that book. I hadn't heard of it, but I will be downloading it after the show. Oh my gosh, Tom, you are so awesome. And thank you so, so, so much for being on the show. I definitely could keep talking and pull, I want to jump from the rooftops to tell people, like, don't underestimate the power of a podcast, because it's not about the podcast. That's just the technical part. It's the power of you, your story, your essence, and, sharing it with the world. So take advantage of it. How can they find you, Tom?
Well, I was going to say, if any of this resonated with you, I'll make it easy. I know 70% of podcasts are listened to sped up. You're multitasking. You're doing a lot of things. So just go to Interview Valet with a V.com/authority. And everything Michelle and I talks about will be there. There's a quick assessment, 10 questions. Will podcast interview marketing work for you? We mentioned my book. I sell a lot of the books, but I give more of them away, right? If you want the book, just go there. I'd be happy to send you a physical copy. If you're outside the US, I'll send you a digital copy. And then finally, if you're like, wow, I could use this. I've thought about this. Well, I'll put my calendar schedule and link there. We can have a discussion. No commitments, nothing like that. But we'll talk about, will this work for you, and show you what, our initial thoughts would be for a campaign there. So all of that will be back at interviewvalet.com/authority.
Wow, what an opportunity. That's huge. Definitely take advantage of that. Those of you who are listening, consider this your nudge to move forward with it, and check out interviewvalet.com. But thank you again, Tom, for being on the show.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right, everybody, that's it for today's show. Definitely check out interviewvalet.com/authority. And I challenge you to think about, what exactly would you say on a podcast that could help build your authority and to make an impact in other people's lives? We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for listening to the Power of Authority Spotlight. If you are a successful founder, entrepreneur, business owner, or leader that's getting results and making a difference, and you'd like to be on this program, please visit performancepublishinggroup.com/podcast to apply. That's performancepublishinggroup.com/podcast. Also, if you got something out of this interview, please share this episode. Just do a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend, or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show, and include the hashtag #ThePowerOfAuthoritySpotlight. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content, so make sure you don't miss any episodes by subscribing. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our websites, performancepublishinggroup.com or michelleprince.com, and follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.